Good, we're rolling.
All right, we're rolling. Hey, it's Derek Sabori. You're here on the we're here on the Underswell podcast radio show. I'm here with my friend Vipe Desai. We're here at his offices on the Outer Banks of Huntington Beach. Vipe, thank you for taking the time to chat with me.
Hey Derek, thanks for inviting me on the show and also for making the trek all the way up here. And
yeah, geez, just down on the other side of the road, no problem. Vipe is an entrepreneur. He's a philanthropist. He's got his own company. It's called HDX. He's been doing so many things. We're going to dive into that. But Vipe, what I really love, I came to one of your, what you call your fireside chats. I know you really like to get your knowledge out there and share it with people and inspire others. And I think you're doing an amazing job of that. But I love how your career has taken on this spin of philanthropy and activism, and you're an advocate for the oceans, and you have totally woven that into your career. So those are some of the things I want to talk about today.
Hey, thanks so much, Derek, and I want to share those ideas with you because I think sharing how I discovered philanthropy and giving back, I think a lot of people can learn from. And as you know, I got a podcast called Army of Game Changers, and everybody thinks that the people that are on it, my guests, are the army of game changers, but really the idea is I want people who listen to the podcast to become part of that army of game changers. So it's the listeners that I want to have become this army, and that's what we need. It's like we've got a lot of crazy stuff going on in our country and our backyard and our planet as a whole, and look, one of the only ways we're going to be able to fix that is if we get more people involved, and we need the right people involved, and we need them doing the right things.
Well, I think you're just the guy to do that because you're such a connector. And I think if this wasn't a sustainability, better business focused podcast, I would so want to dive into just that, the network that you've built, the power of networking. We'll still touch on that and just your entrepreneurial spirit and such. But let's just see where this takes us. But for sure, the Underswell is a similar concept. It's this idea of getting everybody together and following that swell and riding it and doing something for a better cause.
Yeah. Let's hop that wave.
Yeah, let's get on the wave. For those of you listening, if you're into video too, we got a video of the session. We're going to put it over on the YouTube channel, so our intern Dylan is manning the camera over there. So we're balancing between audio and video, but that way you can see Vipe's handsome face and his eclectic office. So Vipe, give us a little background though, just so we can have some context about who you are, what your early days were like, where you grew up, what you thought you would be, and I know your first. Well, I know you first for your surf shop.
Yeah, the surf shop is really, I think, where I would say my career started, but it really began years before then. And, when you're young, I didn't have a whole lot of ambition. Young people nowadays, it's like when they're 16, they've got ambition on lock. I did not have ambition on lock. I mean, when I was young, I was still like just about surfing and, playing, tag with my friends and horsing around with my BMX bike and all that stuff. It was just fun, and that's it. And I'll tell you, the first job that I had was really something that came back to me years later, and I realized the importance of that, but it was working for Chick-fil-A.
That was your first job?
That was my first job.
Awesome.
Okay, and I know there's people out there that probably have their hesitation about Chick-fil-A and their stance on some social issues and everything, but this was the first company that I worked with that I learned cared for their employees. I mean, they were closed on Sundays because the founders believed that people should have that time to spend with their family and friends. I mean, that was before company culture was cool. That was a mandate from the company, and I didn't realize how important it was until years later when I went to go work for other people, and Saturdays and Sundays were on days. It didn't matter about friends or family. So that was one of the first things that I learned at Chick-fil-A was that family was important. The company took it seriously, and it was no ifs, ands, or buts. It was like Sunday is for family and friends, and we will never change our policy. And look at it now today, still policy.
Yeah. Interesting. That's cool that it creates that culture, and I think once you set that culture in place, then it gives you the freedom to, I think, or to just take a breath and be like, okay, it's okay. It's okay for me to go out and do something that's not work related and not be judged for it.
Absolutely. I mean, I loved to surf, and I saw myself being able to go surf on Sundays when all my other friends had other jobs, working at other fast food restaurants. And here I'm able to go surf and do what I want to do, and they had to work, and their days were off were different than mine. But that one day on a weekend meant so much to me, and it was years later that I was able to reflect on that wow, what a great experience I had there, and what an amazing thing to walk away with and keep in mind for the future.
Yeah, and were you able to? So after Chick-fil-A, then what comes next?
Yeah, so after Chick-fil-A, I enrolled in college, and I went to Point Loma Nazarene University down in San Diego.
Okay.
And
what did you study?
Business writing.
Business writing.
Business writing.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, that was by accident too. I really wanted to go into music, but when I got down there, I saw the music program, and it really wasn't where I wanted to go. So I had to quickly change my major, and that looked like the easiest major that I could get based on what classes I had already taken. And look, in all honesty, I think most people probably pick a college based on the education and the degree that they want. I did not have that ambition or foresight. I went to Point Loma because I wanted to surf, and it had amazing waves out in front. So I went there for the surf, and for some crazy way, I walked away with a degree.
Awesome. In business writing, and I want to, you've used that, I'm sure that's a skill.
That is a skill, and that was a skill that I didn't think I would use I didn't know when I would use it or how I would use it, but years later I realized that was a great decision that I made, because I was able to write proposals and business plans, and I was able to use numbers and language to weave that narrative and story. So by accident did I earn a business writing degree, and lo and behold, it made a difference in my life.
Yeah. So at what point then? So straight from college does the surf shop come?
Yeah, straight from college, I graduated, and like every young surfer who was ambitious to do something in the industry, I started to put my resumes out to guys in the industry, to Quicksilver, to Billabong, all the usual suspects, and people weren't hiring at that time. I hadn't realized that there was some sort of war that was about to, take place, and I was oblivious to it. I was oblivious to world events. And here I was just like, I want to work for a surf company. And yeah, the surf industry is not hiring because we're on the verge of a recession because we're going to war. And lo and behold, a good friend of mine talked me into buying a surf shop, because I had worked at a surf shop before while I was in San Diego going to school. And it was probably the dumbest idea I had ever bought into. It was a mistake for me to buy the shop, and I don't know how I got through it unscathed, but it was an accident. I had no business being a business owner or an entrepreneur at that age. I didn't have my faculties and capacity and resources together, but I think that was the first sign that I had a tolerance for risk. And I jumped into it head first. And, the day I closed on the deal, I got the keys and everything, and I opened up the shop. The very first day I walked in, I turned the TV on, and on the news is Wolf Blitzer talking about bombs being dropped in Baghdad.
Oh, man.
That was my first day as a surf shop
Welcome
owner.
to the business world.
Welcome to the business world. And, it was fun. I learned a lot about the surf shop business and everything. Guys didn't want to sell to me. I was a young kid, and their whole thinking was, who's this young kid? We don't know who he is. He has no history in the industry. He doesn't look like one of us. We got all these other shops in the area. We're going to open them up or work with them. So, the industry really didn't embrace me. They didn't embrace the young entrepreneur. And that was fine, because it made me look for other ways to find ways to build my business. So I had to be resourceful.
Yeah, where'd you look to? Give me an example of something you found.
Yeah, well, a lot of frustration,
Okay.
not knowing what to do. But it's funny, I talked to a couple guys that you and I know very well, but Tucker Hall and I went to school together.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So Tucker Hall, the co-founder of Volcom?
Yep,
one of the
exactly.
co-founders?
Yep, exactly. One of the co-founders. So I called up Tucker one day because he and I were friends, and I was feeling a little frustration. Said, Tucker, I'm really pissed off. I don't know what's going on, but I can't get any of these guys to sell me clothing. And Tucker's whole thing was like, well, that's funny. We can't get anybody to buy our stuff.
It sounds like we're a perfect match.
We're a perfect match. So he and Wooly rolled down all sweaty and stinky with screen printing ink all over them because they had pressed shirts and shorts in their garage, and we bought their stuff. And I think we were one of the first 3 shops between,
Wow.
I think, Surfside, Frog House, and H2O is what the shop was called back then. So that was 91, 92.
And so what a lesson just in the power of the network, power of friends. I mean, was that one of the first, did that dawn on you, sort of how important that is?
Yeah, it dawned on me then, but it also continued to dawn on me afterwards because there were other guys that I went to school with that went on in the industry that I could lean on. So, Ricky Irons and Tony Perez, both guys I went to school with at Point Loma, and they ended up at the magazines, at Surfer and Surfing Magazine. So I was able to rely on them for advice and input, even though they were at at an early stage of their career.
Yeah.
Them being there, was helpful to me, but Tucker being at Volcom was great too, and us being able to carry Volcom. I'd made relationships with other guys there like Troy Eckert and all these other guys. And look, I think one of the things that happens is I call that period the generational shift. What happened was people were moving out of their lane, in that, before then it was like if you were a surfer or a skateboarder or a snowboarder, you stayed in your lane. You went to a skate shop, a snowboard shop, a surf shop, whatever it was. That period was where people were embracing surf and skate and snow and music, and Wooly and Tucker and Volcom were embracing and pushing that, and art and everything. And we were feeling the same way, and none of the other retailers were feeling the same way. So we were kind of taking the lead of Volcom and going, we feel that way too. So we started building that into the brand too, of like, let's add music into our retail store, and let's really embrace art and skate and snow and all these things. So I think we were fortunate to be there. Volcom helped lead that charge, and there were other brands and other shops that were doing the same thing, but it was the right place, the right time for the wrong guy, I'd say.
Well, do you still regret it? Do you still, you say, that was not a good decision, or you weren't ready for it, but do you regret it, or was it a good lesson?
It was a great lesson. It was a great lesson. I say that, it was a bad decision at the time, but I made the best of it. I learned a lot, and I had to be humble, but I also realized that nobody was going to offer me any resources or help. I would need to either ask for it or build it myself.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And when I started to build it myself, I saw other people rallying around me. When I started to build H2O into what it was, other people that were outside of the retail environment that were starting their own companies, whether it was sunglasses, sandals, anything, they saw the same passion in me that they shared, and they said, this is the type of person we want to work for. And I was like, well, you're the type of person I want to work with too.
Yeah.
So it was really just the right time. And like I said, that's why I call it that generational shift, because it was a generation of new people that were changing the industry as a whole. It wasn't just a surf industry, a skate industry, but it was turning into the action sports industry.
Interesting. What a great opportunity to be a part of that, And I think it's a testament, though, to you, too. It takes also being open to that and being, like you saw it happening, being willing to adapt and able to adapt and to see something new coming and take it on, right?
Yeah.
What a great skill. Very, I'm sure it's a skill it sounds like that you're still using today.
I'm still using it today.
Yeah.
I'm still using it. The other thing too that I learned in that early stage was that's when I really drew upon my time at Chick-fil-A, and that I had to care about my employees. So I really took extra effort to make sure that the people that worked for me got every chance that they could to succeed, and I cared for them deeply. And it was it's been so exciting for me to watch so many people that came to my shop and worked for me now become pillars in the industry.
Yeah, no kidding.
And start their own companies. and have successful companies as well that are driving the direction and the growth of the industry worldwide. So that makes me feel good that I got a chance to work with these guys. They gave me something to, drive my business, but they also learned something that gave them an opportunity to, pursue their own dreams.
Yeah. How long did that time period last? How long did the shop last? How long did it live for?
Yeah, shop was 8 years.
8 years.
Yeah, a long time. And I think I grew up a little too quick. I mean, I was still young and